Hi folks, this hopefully will be a quick video. I just want to look at the planet Mars as he transits through Taurus and Gemini very briefly. Just please know that 2 days ago I did a weekly overview for this week we're in. Yesterday I did and posted the full moon in Capricorn video, and of course we've got the full moon occurring now in less than 24 hours time. So both those videos are out there. And they do what they advertise. So they are a little bit more, they're certainly more current. But I did want to look at this piece as, as you cover sometimes these kind of the weekly overview and the full moon. And it was very hard to not look at this particular full moon in Capricorn without keeping the next full moon in Capricorn a month from now in mind. So it's almost kind of looking not only at this full moon in Capricorn, but looking ahead by a month. I sort of felt a little bit like, I just intuitively felt that it was time to also kind of focus in on a couple of other aspects that are coming up and when they're coming up, and what's going on in the sign of Taurus and what's going on in the sign of Cancer, etc. So again, this is meant to be a really, comparatively speaking, a quicker update. And ultimately it connects thematically to what we've talked in the last two videos, which is that June requires action of us. And while it may feel like it's almost over, it's really not. There's more likely that we're going to be asked to do and going to do, and June still carries a certain amount of edginess, certainly till tomorrow, but till the July 5th new moon in Cancer. And then it's really, as we head into July, and we'll see some of this energy start to shift by next week, we get into a slightly smoother flow of things. But July promises a certain amount of culmination, whether that culmination is yes, it's a go, or no, it's not, which in its own way can be a bit of a go, whatever. June requires, it says the universe is looking for us to keep our end of the bargain and be in action. And in July, the universe then gets to respond to it. It's just, and it's that much easier. Now, Mars, where our energy goes, and with Mars, as I've mentioned to you, for me, the planet really boils down to two primary things: the pursuit of our goals and our desires. And the word desires, very often in a relationship context or in a romantic context, sometimes it's the planet Venus who gets given certain aspects of human behavior that are really, I find in my work, that it's Mars that's responsible for those. So when we're talking about desire and pursuing who or what we desire, hopefully, if we're working with Mars in a positive and a balanced context, keeping consent in perspective, and showing ourselves in a romantic, gallant light. But with Mars, there's always the risk that the pursuit of our desires, or who we desire, can, there's a spectrum, and beyond a certain spectrum, the energy can turn disrespectful or hungry, or at its worst, rapacious. So with Mars, the pursuit of our desires, the acting on erotic or goal-oriented impulses, and in the pursuit of that, also then dealing with competition and conflict and boundary protection, and ego and egotism. You know, a certain amount of ego and is necessary as we well, whether it's necessary or not, I leave to higher and bigger spiritual thinkers. I can almost, you know, does Saturn really require us in the construction of our realities, keeping consequence in mind? Would it say that it's important to have an ego? Probably not. Saturn would probably say be careful of ego, but Saturn at the same time is also very much preoccupied by us as individuals and what we are here and trying to achieve and trying to build. Irrespective, Mars, pursuit of goals, going after what we want. If you look at the Mars symbol, it has that arrow, right? You know, shooting the arrows of desire, chasing after what it is we want, and protecting. So as I've said on this channel before, Venus is what we value and our values and what we have to offer. And Mars hunts and gathers, pursues goals, pursues survival, pursues plenty, hunts and provides, but also protects what we value, and Venus in that regard. So each of us then has sort of the male side of us, of course, the Martian side of us, the testosterone side of us, the going after what we want, but then can turn, and with Mars, as I always say, assertive, not aggressive, but you've got that spectrum. Okay, so archetypally, Mars, our male self, is pursuing desires or engaging in conflict because we as individuals may feel in certain circumstances that boundary setting is needed. Someone is trespassing boundaries. Someone is going after what it is that we value or might see as ours. So, and so competition, all that kind of stuff comes into play. Now, Mars entered the sign of Taurus very, very recently. And of course, any planet entering the sign of Taurus, the most immediate thing it does is it squares Pluto. And Mars entered Taurus on June the 9th, and on June the 11th, it squared Pluto. And that I have talked about in the last two weekly overviews at length, and even brought up yesterday. So I am less inclined to spend any more time on that. You can always look at the last two videos if you're, it has been a pretty defining. The other thing I've said on this channel before, but I will say again, you can have planets, you can have 5 or 6 planets in one house, but where Mars is where a lot of our energy goes, or the bulk of our energy goes. Now, some people may say, oh, that's interesting, Mars is in Taurus, and I can feel, I would imagine that if you can feel any part of the chart right now, it would really be the Pisces part of the chart, because those squares from Gemini that the Sun and Venus and Mercury made, and indeed the new moon on June the 6th made, were to Saturn and Neptune in Gemini. So the new moon squared Saturn on June the 6th, but these personal planets till earlier this week were squaring first Saturn, and then of course earlier this week Neptune, before they entered the sign of Cancer. So in terms of feeling the pressure and feeling the stress and feeling the urgency, it's likely that those are the parts of our chart, the houses occupied by Pisces first and foremost, followed by the houses occupied by Gemini, now by Cancer, pull on us a certain amount in terms of attention. But where our energy and our tasks have likely gone has been in the Taurus part of the chart. And I am willing to put a certain amount of money on, as we headed towards Mars squaring Pluto on the 11th of June, and even till a week after that. So that puts us to the 18th, which is 2 days ago. It would not surprise, if you were to look at where you were spending your action and your energy, you may be surprised to find that while your emotional and intuitive and attention may have been pulled in other directions, Pisces, Gemini, Cancer, your physical energy and effort and what needed to get done and what was on the to-do list and what contributed to that full moony feeling about 10 days ago, even though the full moon is occurring tomorrow, was because of Mars. Now, Mars is going to continue to go through the sign of Taurus and enters Gemini on July the 20th, a month from now. Now, the sign of Taurus is where, till May the 25th, we had Jupiter. We also have Uranus in Taurus. And the sign of Taurus is one of course, as I've mentioned before, one of the two signs, Aries and Taurus, where until May the 25th, our most expansive, exciting, interesting, adventurous, goal-oriented, forward-pulling activities and incentives and opportunities have been. And between April the 19th, I'm looking at my notes here, between April the 19th and June the 6th, I would say, we were in what I would call Taurus season. Now, you know that I consider, we talk about Taurus season, Gemini season, Cancer season, and stuff like that. And for me, a season starts when the first of the personal planets enters a sign and the last of the personal planets leaves. I will sometimes include Mars and sometimes will not, depending on how close Mars is to the sun. And in terms of the transits through Taurus, I will include Mars as part of Taurus season because between the Sun, Venus, and Gemini, the last of the planets to leave Taurus and enter Gemini was Mercury on June the 3rd. Till June the 6th, we were still under the influence of the Taurus new moon. June the 6th, we had the Gemini new moon. And 3 days after that, on June the 9th, Mars entered the sign of Taurus. If you were to think about the Taurus part of your chart, the house occupied by Taurus in your birth chart, I was going to say there's been activity, but there's been activity in the Taurus part of our chart since about September, October 2021, when we started to experience the North Node eclipses there. We had the North Node eclipses exercising the influence from about August, September 2021 till October 23rd of 2023, 6-7 months ago. Then we had Jupiter entering Taurus from May of 2023 till May the 25th of this year. So certainly between May of 2023 and May the 25th of 2024, half that time we had the North Node eclipses exercising their influence. We had Jupiter continue, and we had Jupiter conjuncting Uranus in Taurus on April the 20th. Very important kind of a seismic shift of a transit. The last time we had this, as I've mentioned to you numerous times, was in the second half of 2010 and early 2011, and we continue to feel the impact of that all through 2011 and early 2012. Similarly, I am posing that we're going to continue to feel the impact of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus for about 12-13 months after April the 20th of 2024 into May of next year. The change continues to unfold. So for me, Taurus season started when the sun entered Taurus. It was the first of the personal planets to enter Taurus on April the 19th, even though, now, every year around this time, certainly between April 20th and May 20th, but extending that, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus will be going through Taurus. Venus may go through Taurus during that time or not. The Mercury follows the Sun pretty closely, and we'll have at least one new moon in Taurus every year. So it's what conventionally is called Taurus season, when the Sun transits through the sign of Taurus from roughly the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, give or take a day or two of April to 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd of May. However, it falls every calendar year. For me this year, as I said, the process started April the 19th and ends when Mars enters Gemini on July the 20th. Now, the one important transit that Mars has got left to make in Taurus is conjuncting Uranus on July the 15th. And I'm doing this whole video. In some ways, Gemini season and Cancer season will be much shorter and much more compact. And they will be. Gemini season will be done, as far as I'm concerned, by July the 5th. Once the new moon is done exercising its influence. Cancer season will be done by August the 3rd or 4th, whenever that is, whenever the new moon in Leo is, I think August the 5th, actually August the 4th. August the 4th. I am not factoring Mars into Gemini season or Leo season, because Mars is falling further and further behind from the sun. Mars's entry and transit through those parts of the chart will likely connect with what happened when the sun, Mercury, and Venus and the new moon was going on in these parts of the chart, but it's starting to lag too far behind for it to be sort of a focused actor in this kind of annual focus of transits that we get in every part of the chart roughly around the same year. We can certainly guarantee that the sun in a Western tropical zodiac is going to transit each sign, and therefore the house occupied by that sign in your birth chart at the same time every year. During that period, we will have typically one new moon in that part of the chart, and Mercury and Venus at the very least will either be coming in before the sun, after the sun, either or, and they will create every year their own kind of narrative of who follows first, who follows next, when does the new moon occur, who follows after that, and what happens related to that part of the chart around the same time of the year, but the sequence may be different. So Mars conjuncts Uranus on July the 15th. The square to Pluto is done. We can expect that the Taurus part of our chart continues to get a certain amount of energy and action till July the 20th, while Mars is there, number one. Number two, I'm only giving you general overall aspects. I'm not telling you what is going on in your birth chart. If you have Saturn or the moon or the ascendant or the IC or the MC or the descendant or Jupiter or Pluto in Taurus in your birth chart, then those conjunctions, not to talk about other squares and oppositions to the planets in your natal chart, will also should also be considered if you're looking at any planet's transits through a particular house. But from a general perspective, the fact that Mars conjuncts Uranus on July the 15th ties in thematically very much with what I've been saying about May, June, and July. May, heading towards the edge of a diving board. June, being forced to dive off. Some of us have committed to it in doing so. Some of it may be holding on to things for various reasons. Energetic pullback with the sun, with Mercury and Venus being combust, continuing to be, but increasingly less so, which is why yesterday's video was very much around reclaiming our power and energy now. Whatever the reasons for that may have been, as I've said, till July the 5th, continue please to be in action and commit to whatever it is that you feel that you need to act on and create, either because that is the direction you'd like to move in, or else to make sure that necessity and challenging circumstances don't land you into a serious crisis. Sometimes those kinds of stressful situations are the motivation for us to take action. But by the time we get into July is when the aspects, more trines show up, trines to Saturn and Neptune. There's greater engagement with the planets as they transit through Cancer with other planets as well, the nodes, Chiron. And as we head to the second full moon in Capricorn on July the 20th or so, that of course is then conjuncting Pluto. And as we do that, as we head to the 20th, 21st of July, on the 15th, which means that we likely start to feel Mars getting closer and closer to Uranus, starting, let's say, July the 5th onwards, starting that Cancer new moon. The Mars-Uranus conjunction, for me, typically is an overwhelmingly positive thing. Now, if someone has done something for which karmic consequences, we're going to see some sort of sudden or fall from grace or something like that, then there are those specific circumstances, but I don't see that unfolding for the majority of people, I'm happy to say, just in general, when I look at charts, etc. When Saturn, for example, is transiting someone's 12th, I don't always see someone getting severely punished for something in the way that the 12th house can stand for. So we don't always have to go to a negative extreme, unless in very rare cases that is showing up. With Mars conjuncting Uranus, the conjunctions to Uranus have very much been in the Taurus part of our charts around aligning us to a path that is right for us. Now, we've had the Sun conjunct Uranus and Venus conjunct Uranus and Mercury conjunct Uranus. And the dates for those: Sun conjuncted Uranus on May the 13th, Venus conjuncted Uranus May the 18th. I think we were headed towards the Sagittarius full moon shortly after that. Because Venus conjuncted Jupiter, that time period, you headed towards May the 18th, May the 23rd, there may have been, related to the Taurus part of your chart, an opportunity or something that was very much linked to this idea of where do we need to move forward? What's the right path for us? What is our individual path in the Taurus part of the chart? Again, I'm looking at Venus to define the opportunity, the relationship opportunity, the creative opportunity, the financial opportunity, the thing we want to protect. And Mercury conjuncted Uranus on May the 31st, which may have involved some communication or some transaction, etc. By the time we get to that Mars-Uranus conjunction, it could be that we are asked to, from July the 5th onwards, to act on something, either to protect ourselves, defend ourselves. There could be, with that Mars-Uranus conjunction, if we were to look at the more challenging aspect of things, there could be an element of competition. There could be an element of someone trying to go after what it is that we valued, or what was identified as something that we value or hold important, as we were heading to the Sagittarius full moon around May the 23rd. So whatever it was that was created as a kind of opportunity related to the Taurus part of the chart that we have felt be giving us a sense of perspective of which direction we're to move in, there could be the possibility of some sort of encroachment. There could be the possibility of us being invited to redo something or act on something or show up in a way that is a little bit more competitive or that has a little bit more edge to it. There could just be a need for action surrounding the direction in the Taurus part of the chart that we are invited to move towards. There could be greater activity, greater engagement. We could be asked to participate more, act more in that direction. As I've said to you, whatever it is that this direction is that we've been trying to move towards since the middle of last year, 2023, that doesn't get completed till the middle of next year. July is a month of culmination, but being a month of culmination doesn't always mean that we're going to get what we want, because we're in the middle of the process. What it does mean is that we move towards it. And as I said, in June, it's up to us to move towards it, and for July to give us a sense of where we are at in the process. We're not going to stop acting. In some ways, acting in July is a little bit easier and less pressure filled. June has an edge to it. But with the Mars-Uranus conjunction, insofar as the conjunctions to Uranus with Jupiter, the Sun, and the sequence again, Sun conjuncting Uranus, really, we had the Sun and Venus conjuncting both Jupiter and Uranus after April the 19th. And Mercury and Mars will conjunct just Uranus, because Jupiter, by the time those conjunctions were happening, with Mercury conjuncting Jupiter and Mars conjuncting Jupiter in August, that is really going to be, that's occurring in the sign of Gemini, because after May the 25th, Jupiter had moved into Gemini. So the Sun conjuncted Uranus on May the 13th. The Sun conjuncted Jupiter on May the 18th, which was the same date that Venus conjuncted Uranus. Venus conjuncted Jupiter on May the 23rd. And on May the 25th, by May the 25th, the Sun and then Venus and Jupiter had all moved into Gemini. Mercury conjuncted Uranus on May the 31st. And now Mars conjuncts Uranus on July the 15th. So the conjunctions, and Jupiter in the middle of all of this conjuncted Uranus, of course, on April the 20th. That was the first of the Uranus conjunctions. Whatever these dominoes are that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction have started to fall, expect to see developments around it. Action-oriented, further movement, culmination one way or the other. Perhaps requiring a certain amount of sorting out in its positive connotation, the pursuit of goals and the pursuit of what we want and turning that into an actuality. In a slightly more challenging connotation, maybe dealing with a certain amount of competitiveness and encroachment. But whatever it is, it's a stepping stone to that second full moon in Capricorn that I talked at length about yesterday when we were talking about tomorrow's full moon in Capricorn. Okay. It was time for me to just kind of mention that as coming up, because Mars is in Taurus right now, and Mars is where our energy is going. And in the middle of all this month of Gemini, planets entering Cancer, Capricorn full moon, what do we need to do to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart? Saturn and Neptune squaring these personal planets and demanding a certain amount of our attention. And the Mars-Pluto square did get mentioned in the last 3 videos, but almost more as a kind of irritant. I just want you to, I wanted to draw our attention back to the Taurus part of the chart with a little bit more respect to how that narrative has been unfolding in the middle of everything. And remember, the North Node eclipses are still in the sign of Aries, and the North Node is still in Aries. Uranus is still in Taurus. Those are the 2 parts of the chart that have been pulling at us for a certain amount of time with regard to where it is that we have needed to head. And the Mars-Uranus conjunction is certainly a development in that direction in the middle of July. Mars enters Gemini on July the 20th. As far as I'm concerned, Gemini season started May the 20th when the Sun entered Gemini. As I said, Venus entered Gemini shortly after, and then Jupiter entered. Between the 20th and the 25th, we had 3 planets walk into Gemini. And as far as I'm concerned, Gemini season ends on July the 5th with the new moon in with the new moon in Cancer. Now, July the 20th, so you can take this with a grain of salt. It's not a very long time period between July the 5th and July the 20th, but July the 20th, Mars comes into Gemini. So if you want to extend that Gemini portion of the chart and the fact that Mars will do the same thing that all the personal planets have done, trine Pluto, yay, conjunct Jupiter, yay, square Saturn and square Neptune, and then enter the sign of Cancer. That whole time period is from July the 20th to September the 4th. So Mars enters Gemini on July the 20th. On the 21st, it trines Pluto. And that's a really important... You know, I was wrong about something in yesterday's video. Guys, I talked about the second full moon in Capricorn trining Mars and trining Jupiter when it's really trining Mars and trining Uranus. I'll correct it when we get to that point in time. It's okay. I mean, there are people who might say, hey, it's trining Jupiter as well. It's a wide enough trine. So it's not that far off the mark. But I'm just thinking about the charts and where stuff is going to be. Not to take you, as I've said, that second full moon in Capricorn, tomorrow's full moon is a starting point to a culmination point. And as we look at these dates, July the 20th, Mars in Gemini, July the 21st, Mars trines Pluto, just around on the same day as that full moon, second full moon in Capricorn. Then Mars will trine the South Node on August the 3rd, August the 14th it conjuncts Jupiter, August the 15th it squares Saturn. Mars gets in the mix then with the first Jupiter-Saturn square. Okay, you know what? I don't know why I'm going into all this. This is about Mars in Taurus, not Mars in Gemini. But, you know, then Mars squares Neptune now that I've started September 3rd, and September 4th, Mars enters Cancer. I'm going to have to do that separately. Whether you consider the focus on Gemini to be, to take us into September or not, I'm going to leave it up to you. For me, I'm going to close out Gemini season. It's a way of thinking about which parts of the chart are active. It just feels a little bit more right. But coming back to the purpose of this video, and we're at the 30-minute mark, and I don't want this to be an hour-long video. Yes, the weekly overview is important that I did 2 days ago. Yesterday's full moon video is even more important out of the videos I've done. This is useful and helpful as we look ahead. And we can't just ignore Mars transit while all this other activity is happening. As I said, don't assume that you're not going to be busy in the Taurus part of your chart till July the 20th. And as I have been saying, as we move past that July 5th new moon in Cancer especially, and things start to coalesce, one of the things that's going to start to escalate there that has nothing to do with the new moon in Cancer, but is going to be happening for about 10 days after that, is the fact that Mars is going to be getting ready to conjunct Uranus, which is an important conjunction given the fact that we've had Jupiter conjuncting Uranus and then the personal planets conjuncting Uranus after that. So it just adds more weight to what I've been saying about July. And as we head to that second Capricorn full moon, on around July the 20th or 21st, which really occurs, that full moon being trine, conjunct Pluto, and trine Mars and trine Uranus happens just shortly after that conjunction. So I wanted to bring it onto your radar and keep it on your radar as an important energetic component that emotionally we may ignore. Part of the reason why I also wanted to bring this up is to give you additional proof that the discomfort that continues to be felt in June, the listlessness, the feeling that things are not manifesting. Now, the first 2 weeks of June for some people may have shown manifestation, greater visibility, and eclipsy occurrences. But for a lot of us, June has more to do with feeling like we're somehow being halted. As I've said, when it comes to squares, it's a little bit like the Sun and Mercury and Venus and the new moon want to create something, and Saturn goes stop, and Neptune goes stop. Now, it's not an opposition, and it is a call for action, but there's a discomfort to the fact that things aren't flowing quite so easily and readily. It does feel like, oh my God, there's stress and there's pressure and I'm lacking energy and I need to do this and do that. It's not quite that results oriented. It's, as I said, it's not culminations. I did want to mention the Mars-Uranus conjunction as giving you something else to hang your hat on in July to see what that does bring as we head towards that second Capricorn full moon. Okay? I hope you found this useful. If you did, feel free to share it or share any of my videos on my channel with people that you think might benefit from it. If you would like me to take a look at your birth chart and do a reading for you, my email address is in the description area below. You can email me there and I will send you information about rates, etc. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already. There's a bell icon next to the subscribe button. If you hover over that, there's a wiggly bell. You click on that. You'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button. If you want to contribute to the channel, you can use that. Comment and like if you feel so inclined. It drives greater traffic, I think, in circulation of the video. Outside of that, my thanks to everyone truly who supports the channel and supports the videos and leaves comments and feedback, positive, constructive, and who's also contributed to the channel. I've been really, I'm always surprised and understandably, I think, moved when someone does use the thanks button. It's lovely. But you're not, I'm going to keep doing these videos anyway. I've been doing them for the past, whatever, 5-6 years, something like that, more than that by now. I'm going to keep doing them. So I'm going to leave it at that, and more to follow. I'm sort of feeling like now that I've covered the Taurus part of the chart, it may be helpful to talk about the transits and going over in the Cancer part of the chart before that new moon. As I said, the most relevant energy right now, of course, is this full moon and whatever I covered in the weekly overview. But as the planets move through the sign of Cancer, they're going to, start squaring the nodes in Chiron and trining this and doing that. And I just thought maybe we should just have a dedicated spot for that part of the chart. It is, out of all the different parts of our charts and the signs transited this year, in some ways, the least consequential, except that, again, as I say that, I recognize that as planets move towards the end of the sign of Cancer, they're going to oppose Pluto. So no rest for the weary. 2024 very much is a transformational year. Okay, enough from me for now. Thanks for your attention, and I will be back soon.